I asked you to send me your hand-drawn fantasy maps so I could critique them in a video, and a bunch of you sent some awesome looking maps. So let's take a look at a few and see what we can all learn from them. First up is Eric and the land of Duke von Smeeg. So Eric made this map to give to his players as they were passing through this area. It kind of seems like a mini campaign section of the world, and I think this is the perfect kind of map to lay down at the tables to get your players excited to explore the world that you've created for them. What I love about this map are the unique icons that the players can explore. So if I'm a player that's handed this map and maybe I need a good night's rest after the previous adventure that we all had, I'm going to head straight for Village Smeeg, but I'm going to be curious about what's going on in these ruins and also the Grismere Lake and the Nunnery of Blank. And it looks like there's a few different ways to get to Castle von Smeeg, and that's sort of interesting to me, makes me curious. And it's clear to me that Eric had a ton of fun coming up with and drawing these unique icons. On the other hand, it looks to me like Eric didn't spend as much time on the mountains and the forest as the other icons, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. As a player, I would love to be handed this map, but if you wanted to refine the map a little bit more, it would be super easy to just grab another sheet of paper, lay it on top, and sort of like remake your map, trace over it, and spend just a little bit more time on the mountain icons and the tree icons. If you make them a similar shape and scale, they won't overwhelm the more illustrated icons. But overall, I think this map is doing exactly what it needs to do for its purpose. It's going to get players excited to explore, and it's going to act as a map. You know, if you're handed this, you're not going to get lost while you're exploring this area. You're going to know exactly where you need to go. Next up is this amazing map of Keochev by Jacob. I think this illustration is fantastic, and I can really tell that Jacob had a ton of fun drawing this map. I think the key on the side with all the regions in different colors is super helpful for the table, and I just love the way the mountains and the rivers and everything is illustrated. So this scratchy, rough style I think is just so awesome, and it's really an excellent example of how the drawing style of a map can give the world a unique feel. Now, Jacob could totally take or leave the two small critiques I have of this map. The first one is the type. I think the number one rule for type is that it needs to be clear and legible, and that Jacob has achieved, but I think this really clear, clean typeface kind of undermines the style and feel of this map just a little bit. In his email, Jacob said that this world is inspired by Slavic and Russian folklore, and I think maybe there's a way to pick a different font that sort of gets at that feeling, or maybe even something that's a little grittier to go along with the illustration, or better yet, hand-drawn the labels. Since this is such a hand-drawn feeling map, actually hand-drawing all of the type would make it feel just extra cohesive. Next up is Kelly's map of Eastern Troika. I just love how classic this map looks. The red calligraphy on top of the black and white artwork just reminds me of an awesome looking Lord of the Rings map. And Kelly said that this world was a dark fantasy world all about vampires, and I think that really comes across in the artwork. Using red for all of the labels makes the points of interest really stand out, and it gives that sort of blood vampire feel. I think the use of thicker lines and thinner lines really helps with the clarity of this map. But my only critique is something I'm actually super guilty of drawing my own maps, and that's not leaving enough space. So there's sections of this map that look super clear and perfect. The mountains and rivers around Tanju and Anat, really, really nice. But then if we go up to the sort of archipelago of forested islands up here, the trees are so close to the edge of the island border that it makes it a little harder to see what's going on. I actually think that the trees and the mountains and everything are drawn perfectly. There just needs to be a little bit more space in between them and the edge of the island. Again, I think this is a super cool map. I love the Cocoa section that isn't filled in, this mysterious continent to the southeast. Super, super cool. Next up is Pavel, who sent me this insane map of the Sleeping Mountain. I absolutely love this map. I think it's so rad, I just had to show it off and talk about it. To me, this isn't so much of a world map as it is maybe like a summary of an adventure. All the crazy things the players experienced as they traveled through the Sleeping Mountain. I think it's a super fun concept, and it's executed with just so much fun. I'm actually hesitant to critique this map because the style is so unique, and I can just tell that Pavel had so much fun drawing this. I wouldn't want any of that to change based on the feedback that I give. So like, definitely keep the crazy layout, the line work, the hatching, all of it super awesome. The only thing I would say is that on your next map, in the back of your mind, and I think this goes for all of the critiques I've had or tips I've given, is just keep this stuff in the back of your mind as you're drawing. My tip is just to think about tangents. So sometimes when you have a complicated drawing like this, two lines will sort of line up and become one line, and it makes things confusing. One place I see this is in this sort of crystal fire platform that is underneath this trident platform, and it kind of looks like they're one thing, but maybe they're supposed to be one thing. And my point is, if you just offset them, they'll look like two separate areas. I think Pavel actually instinctually knows this, because in other areas of the map it's done perfectly, like this little tentacle house down here or this silhouetted axe guy. These things really stand out because they're not too close and touching other elements of this insanely awesome, cool map. Next up is Joshua's map of Fern Roost. Another awesome, classic looking map. I love how the forests are so dense. They create this sort of texture that takes up the map. But Joshua's also left big open spaces, so it's not like there's too much detail going on. I'm very guilty of putting too many details in too little spaces on my map, and I think that Joshua's restraint really pays off, and it makes this Fern Roost map feel big and open and has a sort of epic scale without being that crazy of a map. The other thing I really love is how Joshua draws attention to the important locations. If you look at this simple little dungeon icon in the middle of the forest, by breaking away the tree texture, even though I imagine if the players actually went to this dungeon, it would be surrounded by trees, by breaking them away, it draws attention, looks super good. And really my only feedback for Joshua would be to consider the scale of some of the other elements you have going on in this map. There's this lake down in the corner that it feels kind of squished into the map. So what happens if you let it get bigger and take up more of this forest? And maybe this is just my bias. You've got all this open space and I just want to fill it up. But what if you made the city bigger or this little river and lake bigger? You could spend a little bit more time, get a little bit more detailed with the drawing, and it would really make this castle city stand out and say, hey, this is a really important location on this map. And honestly, that's just a minor nitpick. What I really want to do is zoom out and show you how Joshua uses this map. It's so cool. Once his players are done exploring Fern Roost, they go on to a new location and Joshua draws a new map. And I just think this is the coolest thing, being able to build up a world like this as you're playing. You can create a world map over time and really focus on making each little section of your world special, because you're not worrying about how it connects into the bigger world. You're just trusting that you can add more pages on later. So cool. So we learned about spending a little bit of extra time even on the boring, repetitive stuff. We learned about labels and type having effect on the feel of your map. We learned about leaving extra space and tangents and scale. And honestly, I just want to thank everyone for sending in these maps. I'm sorry there's not enough time to take a close look at all of them, but I do want to share all of them here right now. Looking through all of these maps has been so inspiring, and it's not only fun to explore and pore over the details, but looking at all this great work gives me ideas and it gets me excited to draw my own maps. And I just really appreciate everybody that took the time to make these awesome maps and send them my way. I've really loved looking at all of them. Let me know if we should do this again down in the comments. If you'd like to support the channel, I write and draw fully illustrated monthly TTRPG adventures over on my Patreon. I also have an online shop, links down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!